Today, we're getting some self-care tips for parenting during this COVID-19 burnout. Joining us once again, two of our News 12 education ambassadors. Dr. Liz Mathias. Dr. Liz is a mom. She's also a licensed clinical psychologist and certified school psychologist. And Brooke Leighton. Brooke is a full-time mom, also working, and a disability rights activist. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
All right, and we do want you to be part of this conversation. So if you're feeling what we're feeling, we want to hear about it. Let us know what your experience is like. We are live for the next half hour, and you can watch us on our Facebook pages, and also on there, you can add your questions and your comments. Earlier this week, New York's Governor Cuomo, talked about the rising mental health concerns brought on by COVID-19, saying, quote, "We have a serious problem of the emotional stress and anxiety that COVID has caused." And so many of us are feeling this currently, really feeling the effects, especially parents, who kind of feel like we have to do it all. So I guess, Dr. Liz, I want to start with, how do we manage these feelings?
The first thing to do is to acknowledge that you're having these feelings and that you're feeling burned out. And we're part of a very large club right now. We've been doing this a really long time, and we're being bogged down by a lot of decisions to make each day and managing so much more than we have ever had to manage. We are managing school, home, our boundaries are really blurred right now, and the parts of our lives are not happening where they usually happen. So just start off by acknowledging I'm feeling burnt out, and that's a good place to begin.
Brooke, how is it for you? What's going on in your house?
Well, right now my kids actually are at school, which is amazing. That's something that I advocated for, along with a lot of other parents, to raise our voices to say we do want schools open to the greatest extent possible. When we were home learning, it was incredibly difficult. There is no boundaries. And for kids who have special needs, it's even more important for the parent to play a role in the remote learning, because many children with special needs cannot sit at a computer and learn independently. So it's difficult if you're juggling the online learning with your job, and not everyone has the flexibility to manage both at the same time.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Liz, what I thought was interesting is you wrote a blog, and you put out this kind of questionnaire to check in with yourself, and that there are actual things that we should say, where am I on this list?
Right. So a lot of it has to do with, if you're feeling this way every day, most of the day, is you're feeling very short-tempered, or you're dreading the day, and each morning waking up and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this again, and really not looking forward to even beginning the day. Feeling even more anxious than you usually do, or more irritable, and having difficulty settling down at the end of the night, falling asleep, and then maintaining sleep even though you were tired all day. So these are a couple of signs to look for. If you're starting to feel this way, burnout is settling in, and you want to make sure to take some steps to undo that a little bit and just balance out.
So if you take a look at any one of those things, or all of those things, and you say, yeah, I definitely have that, and you're kind of putting those, check marks next to these boxes, what do you do?
I think it's important as parents to really begin to create the boundaries for our work days. And most importantly, is to create a beginning and end of the day, set times, and really shut down the computer, shut down your phone, and make a very conscious decision not to respond to emails, not to take phone calls, because right now we don't have the benefit of a commute going to work or returning from work as a time to decompress. And if you are working outside of the home, now you have the added commute and all of that to balance while you may have children at home. Really, if at all possible, to create a schedule with your significant other when you may be available to answer questions or to assist your child with their academics. And if you're not able to do that and you need to work outside of the home, to hire a tutor or a teacher to take over that for you. Another thing is, if you are working from home, get out of the house every day. Run an errand, take a walk, exercise daily, to just get out of the house and not hear all the sounds that you're processing all day as a parent. Parents will say, I'm going to take a break and go into my room and close the door. Well, as a parent, I can still hear everything, and I don't find that relaxing. So I like to leave and listen to an audible or listen to just the silence of this nature. And something as simple as really drink water, hydrate, make sure you're eating food that's nourishing your body, because I think sometimes we forget to do that while we're taking care of our children and everyone around us and our pets and our home and blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on and on. But to really think about how you can take care of yourself and begin to, if you're able to, move on some of those responsibilities that are causing great distress for you.
So Brooke, when you heard that list, did you connect with any of those?
Oh, Dr. Liz, you are so right, and it's so difficult. I'm going to keep it real. I think that those are absolutely things that would improve people's wellness. And as a professional working mom, we make every excuse why we can't do that, why I can't take a 15-minute walk, why I can't turn off my email. And many people right now are working in environments where maybe their organization is restructuring, there's layoffs, there's financial pressure because of what's going on in our climate. And they say, I can't turn off my email, I can't not answer this client call. So I think you're right, I'm agreeing with you and validating that it's extremely difficult. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that on that checklist, I would add, are you drinking more wine than usual? Are you smoking pot? Because this is going on, parents are self-medicating, and things that were once social recreational habits now are becoming coping skills. So those are things that you have to be real with and check in with, or also overeating, of course.
Right, because we're looking for some type of a comfort, something to make us happy, and we're choosing maybe not the right choices because all the options aren't available, that in the way that they used to be. The things that made us happy before, we maybe can't do right now.
Right, exactly. And it's the quick fix over the more difficult thing of setting the boundary. That's something that working parents struggled with before COVID. We're multitaskers. So it's incredibly difficult, and I think, starting with baby steps, not trying to do the whole checklist on the first day, pick one and do a little bit.
I've read this interesting article this week from Psychology Today, and they took a look at some 3-letter words. A lot of us might think of the 4-letter words that go along with this pandemic, but they talked about 3-letter words, and one of them was yet. And it's this idea that if you were starting or answering any sentence with an I can't, that you attach this idea of yet to that, because parenting doesn't come down to perfection, and just because you can't right now doesn't mean that you can't, Liz.
No, it doesn't, but it is a conscious effort, and it's bringing attention to whatever it is you're struggling with and where you want to make a change, because it is the most distressing part of your daily routine, and to think about those baby steps like you just mentioned, really thinking about what can I do differently. And what can I do to take care of myself? And that's something as parents that, we put our children's needs in front of our own. We put our employers' needs in front of our own. And it's important right now, especially, to be able to say, I need a break, and to take that break so we don't get to that point where we can't think straight and we can't brainstorm and we can't effectively problem solve. And we are not able to solve those math problems with our children or explain a concept, because these are the multi-natured demands now that we're balancing.
Tony is joining the conversation saying, once a vaccine is found, along with other medication, and the virus is under control, we will still have the residual damage of all the stress, the turmoil, the financial upheaval, and loss to still deal with. How long will it be until we are healed as people and as a nation? I guess, Brooke, why don't we start with your thoughts on that?
I think that it's going to take a very long time for most people, and possibly some things will never be the same, just like 9/11 shaped a generation forever. So will this COVID crisis. However, it's also important to note that people who have more privilege and who are wealthy will rebound more quickly than people who are most vulnerable and disadvantaged. So I think it's going to be a mix. Personally, for yourself, it's just working towards doing better every day and getting through. But the temporary nature of this, to Tony's point, has faded, where it's no longer hunker down for a few weeks, a few months. We don't have an end in sight.
Yeah, I don't think, Liz, when we started this unfortunate journey in March, that we had any idea we would still be having this conversation, at the end of October.
Absolutely not. I thought for the first 2 weeks, when I was told my kids are going to be home for 2 weeks, my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with them for 2 weeks? Little did I know that 2 weeks was really nothing. No, I don't think any of us had any idea that it was going to last this long. I think, I call myself stupidly optimistic. I was so optimistic that our kids were going to return to school in June and be able to play out a lot of their events.
All right, we are going to be talking about some more of those events that are coming up, because obviously the holidays are on their way, and that's a stressful enough time. Up next, we're going to talk about how to handle that added anxiety of planning for the holidays in a pandemic, and what you can do right now to get rid of some of that extra worry. On social media, we'll be right back. No, I'm just saying, is my mic okay? It may be, oh, it did, okay. I just got nervous that I lost IFB, which would be a problem if I couldn't hear what they were saying. Okay, cool. Hi to everybody on Facebook, and we are going to jump into the holidays, obviously. Right here, 1 second, hopefully. This computer is so mad at me today, I can't even. All right. Then I guess if we can jump into talking about social media and, that time of self-comparison where you see somebody else that seems to have it all together. And, kind of how we handle that space. I know I saw this mom that I know, and she has like all the desks and like ready for when we're remote. And I'm like throwing stuff off the table and just putting a pile on another table and thinking, I'm not posting that on social media, but maybe I should. Maybe I should post like this little mess that just keeps moving around the house as I try to clear a space for the kids, because I don't know, maybe everybody else has this little pile of stuff that is all my to get tos that aren't getting gotten to.
You are in the very big club, I would say. We schlep piles all over the place, and it's not Instagram worthy. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is Instagram worthy.
Because maybe if we share some of those mom fails and say, you know what, hey, I'm trying to have it all together, but sometimes I don't. And, I think that's a reality too right now, to say, I'm working full time and my kids are intermittently either plan to be home at school or have COVID cases and end up home from school. And there's also a lot of emotions for the kids that go along with that. And I've often said, and I don't know if this is healthy or not, Dr. Liz, I'm scared to know, but I've often said I can only be as happy as my least happy child, because I end up empathizing so much with how they're feeling that if they're sad, I'm sad. But when they're happy, I'm happy. But the level of happy just isn't where I would love it to be.
I think we all do that very naturally as parents, is that, we feel for our children. We want them to be well and happy. And this is hard. This is a very hard time. And this conversation I'm only as happy as my least happy child. I just had this conversation with another parent yesterday. And we're all
that makes me feel better.
We're all feeling it, because it's hard. It's so hard. We feel for our babies. We want it to be better. And I mean, like babies, meaning like my 14-year-old who's taller than me, but still my baby.
Always. My mom still calls me her baby, and I won't mention how old I am, but over 40. You're watching The New Normal, a special report, and we are streaming this show, as always, live on Facebook. So you can join our conversation right now. That's where you can submit your questions or weigh in. Tell us how you're feeling. Right now, we are talking about this pandemic fatigue and how to manage COVID-19 burnout. Joining me once again this morning, Dr. Liz Mathias. Dr. Liz is a mom. She's also a licensed clinical psychologist and certified school psychologist. Brooke Leighton is also joining us. Brooke is a full-time working mom and also a disability rights activist. We do want to talk about the holidays, and the first one is next week. You know, we've got already the holiday, ditto. I know that's a dated word, but the form came home yesterday about what the Halloween celebrations will look like in my community, for the elementary school. But parents have a pretty big decision to make, and the clock is on the field for Halloween is next week. So I guess, Brooke, what do you think?
It's been an interesting first school holiday. I am the class mom for my second graders classroom, and usually we would send in snacks and decorations, and this year it's much more pared down for safety concerns, which we understand, but we're trying to still make it special for them. So for me, it's about what is the spirit of the holiday. Is it about junk food? A little bit, but we'll get that at home probably all weekend. It's about being spooky and silly and dressing up and bringing some of these characters to life. So I think it's just trying to get at what is the most important thing and how can we still keep to that.
Right, because you also want to pay attention to how, your kids' social and emotional well-being is. And these holidays are really part of that, Dr. Liz. The fun that kids have together during a typical Halloween season.
Our children to have that celebration, because they've, like I said before, they've missed out on so much. And just finding whatever it is you as a parent are comfortable with doing, the number of kids that you're allowing to gather together, coordinating it with other parents, and just allowing them to have that celebration. I feel very strongly right now that our children's mental health is suffering, and for us to continue to take things away, it's so harmful. I've just had so many conversations this week with so many parents and teens and children of like, everything is so different. Yeah. So to be able to hold on to even just a tidbit of what feels normal, like Halloween, I say do it. I say go for it.
All right, now let's talk about Thanksgiving. And obviously that's a time where maybe some of the people who aren't in your bubble, including maybe aunts or cousins or nieces and nephews, would typically come together. So obviously we're grateful for our families and we want to spend time with them, but how do we make informed decisions as parents? And then how do we stick to those decisions? So I guess, Liz, I'll start with you this time.
And yes, it's again very frustrating because the information we're getting is changing all the time, right? So we usually start to make our plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas now, and it's just hard to do that because we don't know what's coming. But I think, again, finding that comfortable level, the comfortable number of people, the place, and it may need to look a little bit different this year, especially if you have older parents or older aunts and uncles, and thinking about maybe allowing certain people to get together in certain places, depending on how much exposure we all have. So it's just going to look different, but I don't recommend that we isolate and just stay home. Just try to find what it is that you can do in a healthy way.
All right, Teresa is saying virtual learning is a huge detriment to our children. It most definitely doesn't work in my home. And I've heard a lot of parents complain. Obviously, we're not at the same place that we were, in terms of March and April and what that distance learning looked like. But it's not optimal for a lot of kids, Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Children, all different types of children struggle with virtual learning. And I will say there are some that are thriving with virtual learning. So there are those cases. But most children should not be sitting in front of a screen the whole day. If this was February, January, or last December, we would be saying, don't let your kids sit in front of a computer the whole day. Now it's like, please have your child sit in front of the computer the whole day. That I don't think that children learn well from a screen. And even though there may, in some cases, be a live teacher on the other side, in many cases there's not. And it's just not the same as a human interaction. And children who struggle with attention issues, language and speech issues, they're not able to interact with their lessons without the hands-on learning and physical prompts of the classroom.
All right, David is saying, do you think we're going to be able to go back to normal life without as equal level of anxiety than as we have been staying home and navigating through this new normal? And I think for a lot of people, this conversation about anxiety just seems to be ongoing, Dr. Liz.
Yeah, I think when the world begins to open up, right, and as we slowly do that, I think the level of anxiety is going to be high before it drops. And it's going to take a lot of experience and just daily life experiences where you're not getting sick or you're able to navigate and do things and then have positive outcomes. So I think for us, it's just going to be based on those day-to-day experiences and seeing what the outcome is. And eventually our level of anxiety will come down, but it's going to be high. It's going to go higher, I think, and before it comes down.
Wow. All right. Up next, we're going to be having a conversation about our kids and video games. Your questions answered straight ahead. Okay, hello to everyone on Facebook. And let me just let you know what the question is. And this section is super short. So, oh, thank you. Both my spouse and I work full time. We have a hard time controlling game screen time with our kids because we can't be physically present to monitor them. We can't turn off the internet because we need it for work. Any advice? All right, so Liz, I guess we'll start with you, and then we'll go to you, Brooke. But just be aware that we only have 2 minutes to try to answer that. And I think that it is so true. I try to get my kids to ride their bike all the time, and then just also hope that they'll end up being tired at the end of the night. But and then there's this game Among Us now. I don't know. Are your kids playing this?
Yes. Yes, I don't know much about it.
Who's the imposter? It's, you know, it's kind of like a Clue, from what I gather, but they're able to have other friends on a game. But it just is similar to Fortnite. Somebody's always dying in these games. I mean, this one, it's a mystery, and they get excited if they are the imposter or not. But again, they're just, after being on school all day on the device, it boggles my mind that they would then want to go on a device in any way, shape, or form.
It's addictive, and a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. So I've been sitting on the couch the whole day. I might as well stay here and, you know, keep pushing this button that's making this thing light up. You know, it's addictive.
Yeah, and you know, I also think, and I don't think we have time for it today to talk about, but this effect of also seeing yourself on camera all the time, and you know, having conversations where other children are seeing inside your home and what that looks like and what they notice and what they take away from it, and you know, then the comments that get made, it's like you have to open up this part of yourself that you wouldn't otherwise have opened, and you also have to spend so much time looking at yourself, which I think for adolescents and teenagers is also a tough thing to navigate. Or we're 5 seconds away. Welcome back to our live special report, The New Normal. And we do want to jump right back into one of your questions, because Mark is saying, both my spouse and I work full time. We're having a hard time controlling game screen time with our kids because we can't be physically present to monitor them. We can't turn off the internet because we need it for work. Any advice? Dr. Liz, let's start with you.
Well, I think video games are very reinforcing. And after spending so much time on screens where it's not reinforcing, I think our kids really want that time to decompress and do something that's fun and mindless. And they're doing it with friends. So it's, as much as I dislike the screen, I also recognize it's a time of social interaction, doing something together that maybe they would have done sitting next to each other, but now they're doing it from each other's homes. So it's a tough one because we want to allow our children to have the social interaction and to do something that's fun. But if you're able to even monitor it and give a time period where, okay, you can have it because you don't want to take it away entirely, because then they'll want it more and they'll learn how to sneak it. But to give them that time to play and then to find time to do other things away from the screen, just because then our brain becomes mush.
And I guess, Brooke, quickly, if you can, have you had any success here? Yes or no?
Yes, somewhat. I try to replace it with another activity they like.
All right. And do remember, News 12 is the only station in our area that does this show every weekday with the information you need. Coming up next week on The New Normal, we're going to take a look at how the pandemic is taking a toll on our teachers' mental health and wellness. Plus, we've got Dr. Nachman late in the week. She's going to give us those steps we need to take for Halloween. And of course, we'll be watching Washington and any movement on a stimulus bill. You're watching News 12.